The day my boss offered me a contract to become her husband for 12 months, I thought it was a joke. She didn't smile. She slid the paper across her glass desk like it was just another quarterly report. "It's strictly professional," she said. "A marriage of convenience." I needed the money. My dad's medical bills were piling up, and my younger sister had just started college. She needed a husband to secure a business deal and silence the rumors circling her company. On paper, it was simple: attend events, wear the ring, share a house, but not a life. No feelings. No complications. Claire was brilliant, composed, and intimidating in the boardroom. But at home, I started noticing the cracks behind her confidence. The late nights weren't just about work. The silence at dinner wasn't pride, it was loneliness. One evening, after a charity gala where she flawlessly played the loving wife, I found her sitting alone in the dark kitchen. No makeup. No armor. Just a woman exhausted from pretending to have it all together. "You don't have to be strong every second," I said quietly. She looked at me like no one had ever given her permission to be human before. Somewhere between fake smiles and shared coffee at midnight, something shifted. We began doing small, ordinary things, cooking together, arguing over movies, laughing at inside jokes. It stopped feeling like a contract. It started feeling like home. Neither of us expected real love to grow in a place built on convenience. But sometimes, the most unexpected arrangements reveal the deepest truths. That kindness, even when it starts as a transaction, can turn into something beautifully real. By the third month, our arrangement had become dangerously comfortable. We had rules in the beginning: separate bedrooms, no personal questions, no blurred lines. But real life doesn't respect contracts. It seeps through the cracks. It started small. Claire leaving a cup of coffee outside my office door before my early meetings. Me staying up to make sure she ate something after 12-hour workdays. We still told ourselves it was courtesy, not care. Then came Thanksgiving. Her business partners were flying in from New York, and she needed the perfect image: successful CEO, stable marriage, flawless life. The house was full of catered food and polite laughter. She played her role perfectly. So did I. But when everyone left, the silence felt heavier than usual. "I hate this holiday," she admitted suddenly. "My mom used to host. After she passed, it just became another performance." That was the first time she told me something real. Not strategic. Not calculated. Just honest. Instead of saying something clever, I did something simple. I cleared the dining table, reheated leftovers, and set 2 plates down. No audience. No expectations. Just us. We sat in comfortable quiet, sharing stories about our families. She laughed, really laughed, for the first time since I'd known her. That night she knocked on my door. Not to cross a line. Just to sit on the floor and talk. "I didn't expect you to be kind," she said softly. "I hired you because you were reliable. I didn't think you'd care." I didn't answer right away because the truth scared me. I cared more than I should. Somewhere between pretending to be husband and wife, we had started showing up for each other in ways that weren't written in the contract. And that was the moment I realized this arrangement was no longer just business. The turning point came in month 7. Claire collapsed during a board presentation. One second she was commanding the room, the next she was on the floor, pale and shaking. Stress, dehydration, exhaustion, the doctor called it a warning. I called it a wake-up call. That night, in the quiet hospital room, she tried to apologize. "For embarrassing you," she whispered. And that's when something inside me broke. "Claire, I don't care about the board. I care about you." The words hung in the air, heavier than any contract we'd signed. For the first time, she didn't argue. She didn't deflect. She just looked scared, not of losing a deal, but of losing control. Of needing someone. When we got home, I canceled her meetings for the week. She protested, of course. But I cooked, handled calls, even dealt with her relentless assistant. Not because it was part of the agreement. Because she needed someone to choose her over her success. One evening, as we sat on the balcony watching the city lights flicker, she said something I'll never forget. "I've spent my whole life proving I don't need anyone. And you're the first person who makes me feel safe enough to admit that maybe I do." That was the moment I realized love isn't grand gestures or dramatic confessions. It's staying. It's choosing someone when there's nothing to gain. I had taken the job to save my family. But somewhere along the way, this woman, strong, stubborn, extraordinary, had become my family too. And for the first time, I wasn't afraid of what would happen when the 12 months were over. Month 11 arrived faster than either of us expected. The contract sat in my desk drawer like a quiet countdown clock. In 30 days, we would go back to being employer and employee. Back to polite distance. Back to pretending none of this mattered. Claire started working late again. Not because she had to, but because it was easier than talking about what came next. I could feel her pulling away, building the wall she once let me step behind. One night, I found her in the living room surrounded by documents. Divorce drafts. Press statements. A clean exit strategy. Efficient. Professional. Safe. "So that's it?" I asked gently. "It was always the plan," she replied, but her voice lacked its usual certainty. I sat across from her, heart pounding harder than it ever had at any business event. "I signed a contract to be your husband. I never signed a contract to stop caring." Silence filled the room. "For most of my life," she said slowly, "people wanted something from me, my position, my influence, my success. I hired you because I thought you'd be the same. Temporary. Predictable." Her eyes softened. "You're the first person who stayed when there was nothing to gain." That was the real twist. She thought I needed her money. I thought she needed my reliability. But what we truly needed was someone who saw us without the titles. The emotional climax wasn't dramatic. No grand speeches. Just her reaching across the table and taking my hand. No cameras, no audience, no contract. For the first time, she wasn't choosing security. She was choosing vulnerability. And that choice changed everything. On the last day of our 12-month contract, the papers were ready to be signed. Clean. Final. Predictable. We sat across from each other at the same glass desk where this arrangement had begun. Only this time, nothing about us felt professional. Claire picked up the pen, then put it down. "I built my life on control," she said quietly. "Contracts. Deadlines. Guarantees. But love doesn't come with a safety clause." She looked at me, not as her employee, not as her temporary husband, but as the man who had seen her at her weakest and stayed anyway. I had prepared myself to walk away with dignity. That was the deal. 12 months. No expectations. But somewhere between midnight talks and hospital rooms, between shared grief and quiet laughter, she had become more than an agreement. She had become my person. "I don't want an exit strategy," she continued. "I want a real marriage. Not because I need a deal to close. Not because I'm afraid of rumors. But because I love you." Those words weren't dramatic. They were steady. Certain. Human. And in that moment, I realized something powerful. Sometimes kindness begins as obligation. Sometimes compassion starts as a role we agree to play. But when two people choose to keep showing up, especially when it's inconvenient, especially when it's vulnerable, that's when something real takes root. I reached for her hand, just like she had weeks before. "No more contracts," I said. 12 months ago, we signed a paper to protect our futures. Today, we tore it up, and chose each other instead. Because the most unexpected love stories aren't built on perfect beginnings. They're built on ordinary people deciding that kindness is worth the risk.